All right, so we're live. Welcome, guys. Thank you for joining me today. And we are going to be going over introspection. So I hope you guys enjoy. And the point of this video is to highlight the essence or the overall power of introspection and why we need this in our day today and why we need it more today than ever before. So let's get into it. So, the inner world. The inner world is the reason why I want to highlight the importance of introspection because the inner world is a reality. The inner world is real. So, when we look at the outer world, we are able to see things and interpret things through our sensory perception, whether that be our eyes, our ears, our nose, our touch, all of these things are mechanisms for perceiving the outer world, but we don't we become so accustomed to observing the outside that we actually forget about the inner world. And the inner world is the place that everything stems from. We're talking about our beliefs, we're talking about our thoughts, our emotions. Our inner world, we think, is largely, and I think this is a big thing. This is why we like to throw it to the side a lot. We believe that our inner world is the result of our outer world, when in reality our outer world is more so a byproduct of our inner world. Okay, so we need to make that shift from outside to inside, and I hope that that's something we can begin to do. So let's go on into some examples of of this inner world. Okay, so some great examples are dreams, active imagination, psychedelics, meditation, and journaling. All these things are able to basically open you up to the inner world. These are all forms of introspection, and I will go into the definition of introspection. So let's first, before I get into that, or let me go first into the definition. So it's the examination or observation of one's own mental and emotional processes, and this is extremely powerful. It is at the center of wisdom, and it is actually at the center of meditation, contemplation, philosophy, religion, so many different schools of thought. They all stem from our ability to introspect. So now, before we proceed, I want you guys to begin to introspect yourself, look inwards, kind of take this in and observe yourself as you go. And as this presentation or live stream moves on, begin to ask yourself, what would it look like for me to look inwards? Because, me myself, as, an avid researcher or a person who's really wanting to learn about this current spiritual situation, there's a lot of spiritual teachers out there talking about why you should be looking inwards, and people don't really know exactly what that means. It's very hard to define because they're saying stop looking outwards, look inwards, and like in practical terms, how do I do that? So what I want for you to begin to think about is, what would it look like for you to introspect a little bit more? What would it look like for you to observe your emotions, your thoughts, to kind of question the different thoughts that arise, the different reactions that come from you. Okay, so now let's talk about the kind of general theme, and that is silence. Okay, so silence is really at it's the beginning of kind of this power of introspection. It's kind of where introspection is really able to get the most the most of its efficiency out there. So you must silence the noise in order to cut to the source. And what is the source? The source comes from silence. And this kind of goes down to, not religious, more so philosophical schools of thought where people are actually saying that at the center or at the very, deepest essence of things, there is just this void or this kind of like emptiness that which all of creation came from. Even in the Bible, it says at first there was the word, and from the word, I forgot exactly what it was, but emptiness was the beginning, and then after that was the word and everything else. And I'm sorry if I'm butchering, like, if I'm completely wrong, but from my understanding, it is that, through like Buddhism, meditation, just if you look at the idea of, the fastest, most, if you were to go to a specific velocity super fast, you basically turn into stillness, which is kind of like a paradox. But this is kind of like the essence of reality. Silence brings you back to the source, and that's what I'm trying to really get to. And when you are silent, it speaks. I think I got that. I don't know if Alan Watts actually quoted that, but I do know that I got to know Alan Watts because of what he's. This was like a thumbnail or a title that was very often used to highlight Alan Watts' teachings. And so when you are silent, it speaks. And the meaning of that is kind of, when you are quiet, when you get down to the source of everything, or when you meditate, when you stop thinking, kind of, when you're able to get to that point where you seize all thought, you're able to actually then listen to the essence, or the principle, the life principle, the beginning of everything, the thing that connects everything else in the universe, because everything else comes from silence. So, when I get to this point of seizing all thought, or when I get to a point of silence, I get back into balance. Okay, and that's really the thing that that I'm trying to highlight here, which is you look at the source of your reality when you introspect. When you start developing and putting that importance on introspection, and start taking it away from the outside noise. And this is really the big thing, which is stop consuming so much, you know, stop consuming so much things. You can stop reading, you can stop looking at videos, you can stop thinking about what other people are thinking. You can even stop all sensory input. This most of the mystical experiences really have a component of, if you were to deprive your senses, so sensory deprivation tanks, or also like shutting all light and living in a cave for a few days. If you were to do these things where you basically shut off your senses, or for example meditation, where you sit down, sit still, close your eyes, and focus inwardly. These methods of sensory deprivation are actually, really triggers for mystical experience. So when you are able to shut off the noise, and I'm talking literally like all the noise, whether it be mental, whether it be actual literal, you know, audible noise, or if it's your emotions, or even the noise in terms of attention, putting your attention outwards, even having your eyes open. That is something that by removing by doing that, by removing the attention from there, now your attention is always alive. You know what I mean? Your awareness is forever. Awareness is forever. Like, even if you're in deep sleep, or um even if you're asleep. I Not so much deep sleep. I'm not sure whether awareness is 100% there, but for example, in sleep, people who start paying attention to their dreams usually are able to notice that their awareness is still alive even when they're asleep. So the point I'm making about awareness is that because your awareness is not outwards, it is directed completely inwards, and in doing so, it shines a light on the inner world, on the inner dimension. So when you observe yourself, you're really looking at the source of all your experiences. Okay. So what does introspection look like? Here's some examples. Some little common ideas of what it kind of looks like. The guy on the left meditating, he's a monk. So the man's introspecting pretty hardcore. Then you got, I believe, that Socrates in the middle, and that man thought a lot, and he actually, it's pretty interesting how a lot of the when you look inwards, there is a form of different, um your thoughts aren't so much based off the outside noise, rather they're based off kind of an inner understanding. So, you for example, for I don't know, for Socrates, like, wisdom was the essence of of what he was trying to figure out. You know, wisdom was what he sought. And then we have Nietzsche here on the right, and he was a you know, great philosopher, and very, you know, he was one of his ideas are very similar to a lot of ideas from the past. And I'm also thinking about kind of like Marcus Aurelius. I've mentioned him in my live stream before, but his idea was that, you know, there is this ideal man, the ideal, I believe he called it Zarathustra, which was the man that embodied the highest of ideals, the highest of values, and to become this Superman, you had to transform, you know, all of your lower values into these higher values, and that's kind of like what the ideal of living is. And he came onto this onto this conclusion or this realization through introspection. So the greatest of, you know, realizations are, you know, byproducts of introspection. And these aren't the only ones. You know, journaling is a good practice where you're really introspecting. You're sitting down and just really just speaking from if you can connect to your heart and write your heart out, then that is also a great form of introspection. Okay, now let me just take a pause really quick. I'm gonna check the comments. I forgot to put that to the side. And if you guys are here, let me know what's up. Tell me where you guys coming from, and let me know if you have any questions. Also, I want to answer more questions, even if it's not related to introspection. Just let me know. Okay, so I'm gonna do the pop out chat right here, and now we can begin. We can come back to the slideshow. Uh, Next, so the ability to experience life to the fullest. So that's what introspection really does bring, and I want this to be the idea or the ideal, that, let's see, the ability to experience life to the fullest is predicated on just how well you are able to introspect. And I've said this before. I have said this before, and I said this before in my live stream, but I really wanted to hit this pretty hard, which is, if you want to get the most out of life, I'm talking literally, like if you were to look at life as a substance, and if you were to um, see how it moves and how it forms around your mind, or exactly kind of like the idea that you have or your relationship with life. If you were to look at life, you know, displace it from yourself, take it away from, you know, your life, but think about it in terms of just life, and you look at life and you look at the experiences that come with it. Um, if you are able to look at it from this place of introspection, then you are actually able to get the most out of it. So, you know, life is a gift. And I think that this is kind of like a metaphorical stance where life is a gift, and if you were to make this gift physical, you would want to get the most out of that gift, right? And people most of the time kind of forget that that gift is there. We're walking around and we forget that we have these experiences, or we have these thoughts and these just all these things that we're carrying around, which is life, and we forget that it's there. We're not actively engaged with life, and that's the issue here. And that's why introspection is at the essence, because anybody can get a quick hit of anything, right? Anybody can go and, you know, get the quick reward, get that hit of dopamine, for example. But not anybody, or not everybody, can look at their experience and dissect and extract the deepest, most meaningful, reward that comes from that experience. So what does that look like? You know, it looks like, you know, people want to live life, but they only do so half-heartedly, because there is this lack of awareness of the essence of life, of this substance that we actually are engaging with. Some of us at the lowest level, and others at a higher, more introspective level. And, you know, some people might say, well, I'm a pretty extroverted person. I just like to have fun, or I like to go out, and I just like to do things, and I like to experience life, and I think that's pretty cool. And I think that has its positives too. And the only thing though is it would be better if you also introspected on it. Introspection, you take nothing. Introspection does not take away from your life. If anything, it brings you more meaning. Okay, it brings you more of a greater ability to look into things. So we need to go inwards so things become more meaningful to us. That way things make more sense. Okay? Introspection means you observe yourself, and when you do so, you're able to break things down to their natural essence. And um, introspection is kind of like, I'm observing the meaning that I attach to everything. I'm observing how I react to things. I'm observing how or why I reacted that way. I'm observing kind of, what does this relationship mean to me? And it's kind of funny because if I studied, I went to college. I studied a little bit of the beginning biologists, the beginning naturalists, and for example, way before Darwin, I'm talking about philosophers like Aristotle. And one of the greatest things that they did was they just observed. And the thing about observing, I'm not talking about observing like watching things go by mindlessly, like being on social media, for example, or just driving your car and being all in your head. That's not observing. I'm talking about observing in the sense that you are actively engaged with the observation. You are actively engaged with the activity. So, for example, Aristotle would sit down. He would observe the I don't know, for example, the tadpoles in the river, or he would observe the trees, how they would grow, or he would observe these little, just so many things of nature. And the thing that came from that was, he was able to reflect that onto himself, and see exactly how nature was actually a reflection of himself. Like the trees, in some way, the way they reacted to the light was kind of a metaphor for how human beings react to the light. How human beings struggle. How human beings are able to get through struggle. For example, if a tree is not getting light from in one specific area, it's going to go and kind of bend towards that specific area that is most beneficial to it. Whatever Wherever there is death, that is an adaptation to a different place. And that's what Aristotle was kind of able to understand because of his ability to be engaged with life. And then also, at every instant, it almost seemed like he was able to look at the outside and really question inwardly while looking outwardly. And that's kind of the actual practice I'm trying to instill here, which is, as things happen outwardly, you don't just go through things. Sometimes you don't just go through things, right? Like at every instant, you're a part of the ride, and if you're not reflecting inwardly, you're not getting the understanding um of how you play into that experience, right? So then we end up living a life where we feel like we didn't live to the fullest, or we're not living up to our potential. And we might be lacking something. What is it that we're lacking? We're so hungry, we're lonely, we're desperate, because we forget that we are actively engaged with the current situation, and we are also a huge part of why we are where we're at. And introspection allows us to, if we were to close our eyes and metaphorically open like our third eye, for example, if we were to awaken inwardly, then then we understand just how unconscious we have been, or just exactly what things mean to us, and now we can dive even deeper into what life is. So the most common form of introspection is going to be meditation, I believe, because it is just it is structured. This is the reason why I'm going to talk about meditation, is because it's structured. Everybody understands that it is about kind of tapping into a spiritual reality, and meditation is the actual kind of like training ground for you to sit down and ask questions. And not only that, there are different forms of meditation, but the overall idea of meditation is to be able to sit down, train your mind to be silent. It's like training your mind to get used to that muscle of like, not everything I that comes out of me needs to be expressed. Or more so, not every thought needs to be said. You know, not every thought that comes out of you is true. And that's something that we need to kind of incorporate into our practice, because you know a lot of us are living um not understanding just how little commitment we need to a thought. We think that because there is a certain thought, um we need to actually act it out. Sometimes, for example, one key thing, I guess one good example is attraction. Just because you're attracted to somebody does not mean that you have to act that attraction out. It does not mean you are in love, or it does not mean that that you are a bad person for being attracted to this person. Attraction is attraction. If we were to take out all of the prior beliefs and emotions and thoughts previously held within our mind about it, but that is so hard to get to, that understanding of like, you know, attraction is attraction, or a thought is a thought, because we're so used to being attached to that idea of like, you know, we're so attached to the meaning that we attributed to that. And that meaning, if we even meditate on it more deeply, or if we introspect on it more deeply, the meaning really did not come from us. It came more so from ideas that were instilled into us through our parents, through religion, through society, and also maybe they were just reactions. You know, we make conclusions that best suit us in that moment. That does not mean that because you made a conclusion back then, it's going to serve you right now, because you're a lot older now. You're older, you're a little more wiser. You have more flexibility and an ability to adapt, because you're operating from a higher understanding of, okay, now I don't have to live attached to that previous meaning that I had on this specific thing. In this case, attraction. So when you train to your mind to go in rather than out, um, for your sense of direction, you're basically making that your default state. Now, this is something that comes with time, but the default state should have always been. I guess I can't say should have been, because there's a reason why we are where we're at, but it should be now, and I think there's a goal that is possible. It should be that our default state is think emotions arise, thoughts arise, but does not mean because they came from like our inner world, does not mean that they have to have been act out. They do have to be understood though, and I think that if you go through your day and you kind of put a meaning to every thought that you have, that kind of every thought that follows after that is even more meaningful, and kind of is more helpful in bringing your life even more fulfillment. So I think it's interesting to actually look at yourself right now. If you were to look at yourself right now and write down the literal actual thoughts that you think every single day, if you were to do that and really go through that, if you were to have a journal, or if you had a notebook and you wrote down every single thought that you thought, and you were to actually like look at it objectively and say, whoa, these are actually the things I think, or whoa, like if you were to look on paper, you would think they were silly. A large majority of your thoughts are usually just noise. I'd say about 98%. You know, about at least like 9 out of 10 thoughts are just noise. Not They're useless, negative, and they don't serve your higher purpose. But the good thing is that if you're writing it down, or if you're actually doing this, or you're at least having that intention, then uh, the next thought, you're gonna actually look at it a little bit more, and it won't arise so much. It won't happen. It won't You won't think that thought again as much. So then now with that understanding that, okay, this thought is just noise, or maybe this thought is kind of more meaningful. Um, in terms of, because I'm kind of a goal oriented person, so this is all coming from a person who wants to grow spiritually. Okay, so I always orient my thoughts and my experiences in that way. How can I serve the world in a in a better way? How can I become that Superman that Nietzsche so much like emphasized in his philosophy? And so that's just so you understand. So I make the judgment of whether a thought is noise or whether a thought is meaningful based off that ideal. So then, okay, so then we go back to meditation and we get this understanding that okay, that experience was just noise, but let me extract at least this much amount of wisdom, or this thought is actually pretty meaningful. Let me elaborate on that a little bit. Or this emotion is kind of is noise, is just noise, but let me see deeper into it in terms of how it explains where I'm coming from, why it happened, because all these things are meaningful and none of this has anything to do with repression, because noise, just because something is noise does not mean that it's not going to affect you. um what I'm talking about here is, can we gain that deeper understanding of what we're looking at? Can we gain that deeper understanding of, okay, there's a separation between the observer and the observed being our inner world, okay, and also our outer world. So then the deeper you go, the more wisdom you will be able to distill, and that is what meditation actually shows time after time. I'm just saying, you sit down and you don't look at your phone, you don't do anything else except go inwards, literally. um, Try to at least pay attention to your breath, pay attention to your thoughts, pay attention to your emotions, to your reactions, everything that is hidden underneath the surface, all of your unconsciousness, all your subconscious beliefs and whatever. If you sit down with them and allow for them to rise up, and you're gonna get deeper and deeper into the center, because at at the center is your soul, at the center is your truth. But we have gotten so used to paying attention to the noise and saying that those things matter, that we kind of put layer upon layer upon layer of noise upon our own hearts, upon our own soul. And so we're suffocating our souls unknowingly, because of these beliefs or this misunderstanding of, of what matters, what really matters. So meditation kind of allows you to get a little deeper into that. We're going deeper into the ocean. We're not at the top anymore. We're not, riding these crazy waves. We're not surfing at the top. We're in the deep, dark ocean where everything's quiet and everything's still. Okay. So this is a little hard to grasp. Um, but when you can observe, you are able to understand things from the inside, and you get to know the inner mechanisms of your reality. So my bad, I actually missed forgot to put that on there, but that's the slide right there. Um, and this takes practice, but this is something that happens, okay, and it is achievable, and it doesn't take too long for you to notice that, oh, like these little aspects of yourself, your inner world, kind of is real. It is a thing, and you'll see it through dream journaling. You'll see it through meditation. You'll see it through journaling itself. Sometimes you start journaling and things just write itself automatically. Okay, so now let's talk about the different forms or the different practices that will actually open you up. The different practices or forms of introspection that will open you up to the inner world. And the first one, which I think is pretty crazy, pretty weird, but also really interesting, and that is active imagination. And I do plan on making more videos on, or more streams on, imagination itself, because the underlying understanding of imagination is so powerful and so slept on, that I think it is life changing. um the basic idea of imagination is that imagination is the reality. Imagination is the kind of the primal, um or primary uh basically source of everything. Imagination is the source of reality. And if we were to think about God, for example, imagination is, we are all God's imagination because we were all created from him. And so active imagination is a form of actively engaging with your imagination to connect with your subconscious. Okay, and this was a practice developed or discovered by Carl Jung, and and the things that, when before I even found out about active imagination, I was doing it before I even knew I was doing it. Okay, so this form of introspection just demonstrates how alive the inner world is, because you're gonna have literal conversations with your subconscious. You're gonna have conversations with yourself, and you might think you're going a little crazy, but that's okay because we're not used to that. And I do want to make a little aside or a little side note, which is, we're always talking to ourselves, even though you don't realize it. We are talking to ourselves at almost all the time, and we're just not doing it out loud. Okay, so this though is an active, more structured, more controlled form of doing so. And when we put this process into a structured, disciplined ritual, um, we get, results. We get closer to progressing in our evolution. So the container is, or the process is, you get into a meditative state, and this is the basic idea. Okay, if you want to look more into it, there's videos on YouTube. There's Just look it up on Google. But the process is, you get into a meditative state, you open yourself up to the unconscious, you begin a dialogue with your inner aspects, and sometimes it just depends. Sometimes it might be the inner child, sometimes it might be the tyrant within you, sometimes it might be your feminine aspect, sometimes it might be your soul. All of these different archetypes, these different aspects of yourself are alive within you. And when you do practice this, you'll begin to conversate, and in doing so, you'll realize, why you do the things you do. Sometimes you will realize the why you have certain, you self sabotage, or why you're so angry, or why you feel so lonely. All of these things can be found or can be understood through active imagination. And the final step is you finalize the ritual. So I haven't really, for me, I like to write things down and say what I'm going to do, and set the goal for myself and actually do the thing I say I'm going to do. Because for me, that's like finalizing it. Like, okay, I thought about it and I implemented it. But there's other more not new agey, but I guess kind of out there. At least for me, it was kind of out there. Um, you can like burn a paper, break a piece of wood, or break a pencil, whatever, just so you understand that the the interaction is complete, and now we're gonna go out and do something about it. Okay, so this is a pretty dope form of introspection, and I would for sure very, highly recommend that you do your research on it, because it'll be pretty interesting. And the book to actually go to for that is Inner Work by Robert A. Johnson. And go ahead and check that book out. It also talks about dreams. So one of the ways that this kind of played out for me was that I was able to sometimes, well, a lot of the times, I would sit by myself and, question myself. There would be like a conversation of me looking within and asking myself, why are you mad? Why are you sad? What's going on? Do you want to talk? And this kind of just happened intuitively. Um, and this happened, 29, this probably like around 2019, 2018 when I started doing this. And maybe I had done it before that. But this is when I was actively using it for for introspection. And you get all sorts of different experiences. I didn't know the specific archetype I would be interacting with until later on, once I found out about Jung's work. But for example, like the tyrant, or the okay, we are back online. My bad, guys. Basically, there was the inner child. There was the cynical part of me that was always looking at things in a negative way. There was there were different aspects or different aspects of my personality that I'd be able to interact with. Um, I think the most popular one right now, or the most well known one, is the inner child. People are always talking about inner child healing, and that is just one aspect. And I think this is kind of great that, and I think it's kind of a slept on practice, but all those things that people are talking about, talking to your inner child and having a conversation, that is active imagination. That came from Carl Jung's work, and that can be stretched onto talking to other aspects of your life, other aspects of yourself, whether it be the feminine you, or the masculine you, or your soul, or talking to like your higher self, and all of these things are aspects of active imagination. So if you have heard about this in the spiritual community, the inner child healing, and didn't know about active imagination, make sure to let me know. Let me know if this is helpful for you, okay? Because for me, this is exciting, because we're getting to a clear understanding of where all of these things come from. Spirituality is very uncontrolled right now. It's very unstructured, especially in the mainstream. But psychology is there to do that. Psychology is there to put a structure. There to put a label onto things, and I think it does a great job. Okay, so let's go on to the next one. Now this is reflection. Okay, I haven't come up with the name, but this is my process. This is my way of doing things. This is the thing that I have been doing since I was, I don't know, just a little kid, probably 10 years old. Always been thinking about stuff. Didn't really get to do it too much up until college, when I was alone and had to figure things out on my own. But my own form of introspection. Okay, this is reflection. I need to label it something else. Maybe in the future it'll be something big, but it's pretty simple. Okay, this is geared towards looking at life experiences and distilling the wisdom ingrained within each experience. Okay, every experience holds wisdom within it, and reflection is the process of extracting that wisdom so that we can use it for our spiritual growth. The process: you sit down and you choose an experience that you want to work with. Next, you start to question the experience, trying to understand how it has affected you and the meaning that you have attributed to it. This is the form, this is the inner, this is really questioning the relationship. What is my relationship with that experience? What is my relationship with this meaning that I gave it? You want to be able to sit there and understand, excuse me, you want to be able to sit there and understand what that experience meant to you. And during this process, while you're doing this, you're going to add more meaning to it, because you're actually looking at it at face value. So when you start to reflect upon an experience that happened in the past, maybe you got rejected by a girl or something, right? And you start to, you never want to think about that experience. We pushed it away, and we never went out again to express how we felt. But we sit down and we start questioning, okay, so what did that experience mean to me? Okay, back then I was young, and I was really seeking validation, or I was really seeking, love. Okay, but what does love mean to me? What does love actually mean? And then you kind of get a clear understanding of, like, okay, so we're going deeper and deeper into what the meaning is, rather than just using a label to say how we felt. It's kind of like this thing of, I'm in love, but what does that really mean? Okay, what does love mean? And in what circumstance is can love be defined? There's brotherly love, there's motherly love, there's all different sources of love. So this first part I like to call kind of like the first the first point of view. I think, what is it called? Like the primary point of view. And then we have the third person. Okay, first point of view, and then first person point of view, and then there's a third person point of view, which is even more interesting, which is you sit down and you separate the experience from your attachments, and you observe it from a third person point of view. Okay, so this is when you're actually looking at the meaning that you've attributed to things. You have the meanings that you have attached to that, and then you you take that meaning out of it, and then you look at the experience by itself, and you kind of want to look at that experience from a third person point of view, like you're watching a movie, or like you're watching somebody else, and you're just observing. There is no judgment, there is no input, there is no um it's a specific label or conclusion that you're trying to get from it. You just want to be able to observe the experience by itself, because in this way you're kind of able to relive that experience for the first time. And this is really important, because once you do this, you are able to judge between both points of views. You're able to judge between the first person point of view, and you're able to judge between the third person point of view. And in doing so, you're able to come to bring those together, kind of mold them into a more integrated, more holistic point of view, which can help you help others, and also help you in your spiritual growth. So that's my personal process. Hopefully it makes sense. And I can make a video explaining it more of it. But that's that. Okay. And here's the quick idea. Crap, I'm messing this up. Control F. So let me move this over for a second. So if you want to take a screenshot or something, just make sure to look at it. Now move on to the next thing. So the power underlying all of this. What is the meaning of all of this, right? What can we take from this? So there are three benefits that come from introspection and from doing all of this, and that there's something to look forward to as you go through your journey and you start practicing this. But you awaken to your inner reality, and most people are living outwardly and superficially. People like to create their life based off what they see rather than who they are. Okay, so when you introspect, you start to see how to create life from who you actually are. Okay, then this is kind of this is a way of extracting more wisdom from your experiences. You're basically going to be able to distill so much more wisdom out of your experiences, because every experience is much more meaningful to you now. Okay, and with meaning we get a greater sense of connection to your spiritual self. You get a greater sense of connection to who you actually are, right? And so you get this ability to derive more fulfillment from life. You feel more connected. You feel more fulfilled. Okay, so then we get into the third benefit, which is, I think, is at the center of a lot of psychic abilities, which is you are more tuned into the essence of things. Okay, what is the essence of a thing? And that's really the question that you kind of want to walk away from. And it's kind of a deep question, more philosophical, where what is the essence of all of reality? What is the essence of all creation? What is it that is at the center of every single thing that I've gone through? What is at the center of me? And when you start asking these questions and you start tuning into that specific thing, then you get closer and closer to how things actually are, and to the truth. Okay, so you save time from running around in circles and really get to a quick understanding of what's going on both within yourself and others. Okay, now let me move this right here. So something that I think is the reason why this is kind of a great benefit to psychic abilities is because you're not too taken or driven by superficial things. Okay, and at the core of being a psychic, or even being a healer, you want to get to the source of things. So if somebody's suffering from something, if somebody's suffering from a physical ailment, you want to be able to cut to the source of that, and not give them pills, but give them the understanding of, okay, so this is what happened, this is what's happening in your body, and this is what's causing that. And um and then being a psychic is kind of, you have this ability to really tune into a higher frequency, because the higher frequency is found deeper within things. Okay, you're able to basically see things, see through the physical, and in doing so, you're basically tuning into a higher reality. Okay, and the reason this happens, okay, so if you awaken to your inner reality, the first benefit from introspection, the reason that happens is because you actually open your eyes to the inner world instead of having it closed the whole time and operating off the superficial world. The reason you get more wisdom is because you break things down so much more easily. You know, you're meditating, you're journaling, you're deriving more meaning from things, and then the reason you are more tuned into things is because you're so used to looking now at the source of things rather than the superficial, the physical things. You cut to the source, so now you are much more in tune with that, and in doing so, you know, in being introspective, you actually get closer and closer to your soul. You get closer and closer to who you actually are. And that just is that's just, you already know. I mean, I guess you already know what happens from there. You become you become closer and closer to becoming your higher self, and bringing a greater ability to create um in this physical reality. Okay, so let me know if you have any more questions. I think that's it for the presentation. That is what I have for you guys. Let's see. Um, Appreciate you guys watching, and also make it. Let me know if you have any suggestions for future videos. I'm gonna wait a second just to see what you guys have to say. If you guys have anything to say, I know you got some people here in the chat. Let me just say I'm also very thankful for you guys being here. I have been live streaming now for about 3 weeks in a row. Well, 2 weeks in a row, and I plan on doing so more often. I like talking in long form. Just you know, it's kind of like it's a more structured form of introspection for me, and I am also a learner. So if you guys have anything, you know, you want to input, I'm there. I'll be there. Try to figure it out for you. And then another thing is, I guess I just want to say thank you to whoever's been following me. Um, I'm I don't know. It's been 2 years since I started my YouTube journey, and the place I'm at right now, I'm very happy doing what I do. You know, I leave the live streams and I'm smiling because I just finished it. You know, and it's something that I want to do every single week, and I see myself teaching this to people or talking to people for you know the rest of my life. Um, so whatever I can do, you know, that would be great. You know, I took a little break from YouTube to become a healer, get to learn to be a healer, and that has been good. So I've been basically that kind of helped me with feeling much more um, in tune with myself, much more in tune with my abilities to help people. Because now I don't just help people mentally, but I can help people emotionally and I can help people physically, and that's just a beautiful thing. Okay, so we got a question here. So growing up in a Christian society, I fear speaking to other entities when doing shadow work or introspection. How do you know the difference between yourself and others? So this is an interesting thing, and this is gonna be, I guess, it is kind of hard, and this is something that I've been wondering myself because I literally just had a um, sleep paralysis experience last night, and I was thinking about this today in the morning because it did seem like a demonic entity, and what I've learned about demons and you know other entities is that they are basically other versions of ourselves, kind of. You know, we like to think that we're all connected and we are all reflections of each other. And the one thing that I understand for myself is that when you have love, when you hold love in your heart, everything else just follows. You know, everything else, like any negativity, cannot survive. And that's just what happened with me. You know, when you meet negativity with negativity, you feed the negativity. And this is what I've experienced myself, both in my dreams, in trips, and even in just my day to day interactions. When you give back love, when somebody gives you hate, or when, for example, a demon appears, you are able to transform the situation. Now, when it comes to doing the actual shadow work or introspection, shadow work, for example, you don't have to do active imagination. Shadow work is actually more so a form of introspection where it's more so journaling and looking at your past self and working through the traumas and experiences that you've gone through, there's not going to be a I feel like there's not going to be a demon um really trying to control that situation. And I think there's something in my own experience in terms of working with demons, or other things, like they go away when you go through the healing. And knowing and to know whether something is you or not, it's just intuitive. I feel like for myself it was very intuitive, because of the thing is that I know how I felt, like I know how that feels. For example, I'm going inwards and I'm asking myself, why am I feeling so bad right now? And I'm going through the active imagination work. um that the person, or that version of me that's speaking, is asking me for help. Okay, it's asking me. And even though they might sound mad, they might sound angry, it's kind of like when you are talking to your little kid and they're hurt. When people are hurt, they hurt others, right? And I think the big thing is that, when you look within yourself and you find aspects of yourself that are hurt, they will be in pain and they will be suffering, and you're gonna have to be able to hold that space for that entity, or that aspect of yourself, so that they can feel loved. And then, when you hold your space in love, like, I love, just in general, I just love. I want to help. I want to heal. I want to grow. When you do that, the harmonization just happens. Because, you know when there is a negative, can't attract anything else. You know what I mean? If you're in the positive, you attract positive, and if you're in the negative, you stay negative. um I would suggest that maybe you look into more so things surrounding angels and demons, who or what exactly they are. There is a YouTuber that does this pretty well. His name is Aaron Abke. I'm gonna type it in really quick, and he has this interesting thing about, how, like, what demons are and what angels are, and he explains them pretty well. So make sure to check that out. But, the difference between yourself and others, it's really just intuitive. And you would know because you can relate to that person. You would know because that person knows your past, because that was you, the little child that you shut off. When you open up to that child, they're going to tell you all the things that you've gone through and that you've been through, and why they're hurt. So, it is an intuitive thing. Um and I doubt there's any. I don't know. I haven't had any experience, for example, of like, okay, I'm dealing with like a demon or something, which is gonna it has which is within me, right? So that's really, hopefully that answered your question. Let me know. It's a lot. I want to break it down pretty simply, but I like to say the big picture. Like, okay, so we need to redefine what demons are. We need to redefine what an angel is. We need to redefine what shadow work is. Um, yeah. Okay. Okay. Yeah. So that's good. And hopefully we can get back down to really the idea, which is, if you actually try it out, or if you research it a little bit more, you will understand that it is you. And your mind is your mind. You can't allow for anything else to enter it, unless you say that, unless that's the frequency that you're at. Okay. Demons attach themselves to people because people like to frequent or do the things that those entities love. Okay. um and that's just my experience. I'll give you a story just to finish this off, because I think this is interesting. It's pretty funny. I have a little sister, and she likes to party and she likes to go out a lot, and she does her own thing. And for a while, she's always had these tendencies to drink alcohol, for example, or um, go out in the late, come back late. Of course, you have to, you would know that person, but you know that kind of person, right? And after a session of I did a little emotional release session. I guess I also did a little demonic release session, because during the session I was releasing the emotions, and she was kind of like falling asleep, and she was dreaming, or she was seeing that there was like people kind of like slapping her in the face because they didn't like the healing. They were attached to what her body, kind of like disincarnated beings. She had a lot of disincarnated beings around her field. And once we did that release, they were of course mad, but we all I helped her release all the things that were dragging her down, and because I released that, the entities went away also. And she told me herself that, she doesn't have as much cravings as she used to. And she wants me to do another session, and I will. But that's an interesting thing, the things I do, I just usually do it for the emotions and the physical healing. But it's all connected, it led to this entity release, right? And Yogini, Yogini. Hopefully, I'm pronouncing that right. Vajra. Thank you for coming through. Bellingham. I'm guessing that's Washington. Not too sure about my states. I'm sorry. I'm in Arizona, so shout out to you from there. And I appreciate you guys watching. Like I said, and hope to see you guys on the next one. Okay. Anything else? Make sure to check down below. I have the link to the book right there. Or I will if I don't. So you guys can check it out and start doing some active imagination, and keep looking forward to the content. Okay. So love you guys. Remember, stay lucid. Take care. Okay.